Hi there, Mark here again from talkingbass.net with another in the Music Theory for Bass series of lessons. I'm releasing lessons every week, so subscribe to this channel to keep updated. Make sure to visit talkingbass.net where you'll find all the lessons with all the PDFs and backing tracks, and it's all available in the download area. So this is the final lesson covering chord construction. We'll be moving on to other areas of music theory in upcoming lessons like scales and harmony. Hopefully now you should be able to dissect pretty much any chord that you see in a chord progression, know the notes within it, and how to build a basic arpeggio from those notes. We've covered triads, seventh chords, extensions, altered extensions, added note chords and suspensions, which leaves us with one more popular form of chord, and that's the slash chord, which is often associated with inversions. Now, sometimes you'll see a chord symbol that looks a little bit like this. A basic chord symbol with a line and another note letter below or to the side of it. Now, this is incredibly simple to describe in that the top or left chord name is the actual chord being used, and the note name beneath the line or to the right of the line is the bass note to be played underneath it. Now, that can be on the same instrument or divided between, let's say, a guitar and a bass. So let's say that we're in a three-piece band of guitar, bass and drums, and we want to play a C over E. The guitarist could play the C chord and the bass player can play an E. If the same chord is to be played on a single instrument, like a piano, you'd voice the chord so that an E is the lowermost note. So what is an inversion and why is it related to these slash chords? Well, to know about the theory of chord inversions, we need to look at a basic triad built from the notes 1, 3, 5 in order from the tonic. So let's look at a C major chord. We've got the notes C, E, G in order from the root note, and this is known as a root position triad. If we take the C up an octave, so that the order of the notes is E, G, C, it's the same three notes just in a different order, and we now have the third on the bottom of the chord. This is called first inversion. If we take the E up an octave now, so that we now have the notes G, C, E, it means that we have the fifth at the bottom, and this is called a second inversion. This method of inversion can be applied to any other chord, so a seventh chord can have a third inversion with the seventh at the bottom. Okay? Now, this principle can be applied on a broader scale across multiple instruments. The order of the notes above the bass note doesn't have to fall into this 1-3-5 or 3-5-1 or 5-1-3 order. As long as the bass note is the third or the fifth, then we have an inversion. In traditional classical and Baroque writing, there's many rules and guidelines governing how we can voice these notes in writing or playing music. And certain notes, like the third, can't be doubled, and certain contexts create other problems and rules because certain intervals have to be avoided, etc. But in modern day writing, this isn't so important, and you can just think of these inversion chord symbols as a certain chord over a certain bass line. Of course, this is particularly important to us as bass players because it gives us a certain amount of power in the band. If the chord being played is a C major and we play the third or the fifth, which would be an E or a G, then we're inverting the chord and each inversion has a certain sound. So let's play along to a few chords on the backing track just to hear how these inversions sound. The first chord will be a C major chord, just a single C major chord, and we'll play a bass line just consisting of a C. So this will be a root position C major. Okay, so now let's play that same chord again, but this time we'll play an E. So this will be a C over E, which is a first inversion. So now we'll play over the same C major chord again, but this time we'll play a G in the bass. So this is a C over G, which is a second inversion C major. Okay. Now, those inversions on their own can sound a little bit odd or even useless, but these chords are used for many different reasons. Most of the time, it's to help in creating interesting root movement. On a really basic level, you could take a chord progression of C major for 2 bars, followed by an F major and a G major, and make the second bar of C more interesting by changing it to C over an E. So we have C, C over E, F, G. The bass line has been given a smoother transition from the C to the F. So let's try that chord progression along with the backing track. So this is C, C over E, F and G. Sometimes these inversions can be used to give just a little bit of a different sound to a chord or add a little tension or variation. Here's a basic chord progression in C major of C major, E minor 7 and A minor 7 for a bar, D minor 7 and then G7. Okay, so here it is, all root position. So that's the completely unaffected chord progression. So there's a few ways that we could use inversions to add a little bit of a different sound to that progression. First of all, let's try changing the D minor 7 to a D minor 7 over F. So we'll be putting the third in the bass. So here's that progression with a D minor 7 over F. So now let's try the same progression again, but this time we'll change the A minor 7 to A minor 7 over C. So if we keep the D minor 7 the same, this time we'll be going from the E minor 7 to A minor 7 over C and then to the D. So we're enclosing that D. So we've got a little bit of a smoother movement. So there we go. A minor 7 over C, D minor 7. Okay. So let's try some second inversions. Now if we try to use an A minor 7 over E in place of the A minor 7, then we get to use an E note running through 2 chords through the E minor 7 and the A minor 7. So that gives us a kind of pedal note running through the progression, which gives a certain type of effect. So let's try that. Here's the pedal. A minor 7 over E. So now we can try the same thing with the G7 so that we get a G7 over D, which gives us a chord progression using an E through the E minor 7 and A minor 7 over E, and then a D in the bass through the D minor 7 and G7 over D. So the bass note will go from C up to E, down to D, and back to C. Okay? So you can hear how we get a certain amount of tension through the second inversions. So be careful with how you apply this inverting of chords, because sometimes it can be a great little fix for a song that needs a bit of a change, but sometimes it can be a really bad idea if you just start throwing them in randomly while playing in a band and you don't give anybody any warning. It can just sound like a mistake, so go easy on them. Now, chord progressions often use quite jagged root movement because of the heavy use of the cycle of fourths. So smooth scale movement in the bass can sometimes clean it up. A great example of this is the popular progression used in Procol Harum's Whiter Shade of Pale, which is pretty much a play on the progression of Bach's Air on a G string. So here's that progression in C. Now, as you might have noticed, we don't really need to limit ourselves to inversions. Pretty much any note can be placed under a chord and indicated using this slash chord notation. You can have sixths and fourths in the bass simply through weaving a smooth line through the chords. And sometimes when we hold a bass note through several chords as something called a pedal, we get a variety of unusual sounds. This is as the chord moves and creates waves of tension and release over this static bass line. So here's a sequence of chords from the ending of the song Evergreen by Barbra Streisand, and you'll hear this weird movement. Okay. Now, you wouldn't think to just write a chord progression like this from a viewpoint of individual chords. It's more a consequence of the effect of a chord pattern shifting over a static drone. Now, another use for slash chords is to simplify a certain chord symbol. I don't really like doing this because I think it can be a little bit misleading, but sometimes it can be a good way of describing a chord to someone who might not have it under the fingers. For instance, a minor 7 flat 5 chord can also be written as a minor chord a minor third above the required root. So if we take a C minor 7 flat 5, that can be written as an E flat minor over C. Now this is a popular way of voicing a chord on guitar, so some players might prefer it. Another popular slash chord rewriting is the dominant 11th chord, and now this can be written as a major triad a tone below the bass note. So a G11 can be written as F over G. The F triad contains the notes F, A and C, which can be translated to a flat 7, 9 and 11 from a G bass note. So that's slash chords in a nutshell. To sum up what we've covered, a slash chord is simply an indication of a certain chord held over a certain bass note other than the root. And there are many reasons that you might want to do it, but most of them involve adding interest to a basic chord progression through messing about with the bass line. This makes it a really interesting topic for us bass players, so try experimenting with notes other than the root in some of the songs that you might play, and see what kind of an effect it has on the sound of the progression. Okay, as I always say, check out www.talkingbass.net where you can download all the material from this lesson, and be sure to subscribe and download the fantastic scale reference manual for free. Also, please like this video and leave a comment. If you have any questions about these lessons or anything bass related, just ask and I'll answer and possibly respond with a dedicated video. Okay, see you later.